We all know about the sloths of today, cute, slow-moving, and small. We couldn't imagine if they were bigger, right? Yes, their prehistoric ancestors were giant beasts. Meet the giant ground sloth Megatherium, Greek for giant beast. Megatherium is the poster genus for the giant megafauna mammals of the Pliocene and Pleistocene epochs. This prehistoric sloth was as big as an elephant, about 20 feet long from head to tail and 15 feet tall, weighing in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 tons. There are 4 species of giant ground sloths, including Megalonyx. This ground sloth, Megalonyx jeffersonii, could grow to be about 10 feet long and weigh up to 2,205 pounds. This is roughly the size of a bison or small elephant. Eremotherium. This ground sloth could reach 20 feet long and 5.5 feet tall when on all fours, and possibly up to 15 feet tall when rearing up. It weighed between 8,730 and 14,440 pounds. Darwin's ground sloth. This sloth was slightly smaller than some of its larger relatives, weighing around 2 tons and measuring roughly 3 meters long. Nothrotheriops. This ground sloth was the smallest of the 3 genera, reaching up to 9 feet long and weighing up to 550 pounds. They were massive. Fortunately for its fellow mammals, the giant sloth was restricted to South America, which was cut off from the Earth's other continents during most of the Cenozoic era, and thus bred its own particular assortment of plus-sized fauna, a bit like the bizarre marsupials of modern-day Australia. When the Central American Isthmus formed, about 3 million years ago, populations of Megatherium migrated to North America, eventually spawning giant-sized relatives like Megalonyx, the fossils of which were described in the late 18th century by the future U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. Remains of ground sloths are often found in caves or sinkholes. Conditions in caves are such that many tissues that would not normally be preserved, such as skin, nails, and other dried soft tissues, are naturally mummified and preserved. Within caves, complete sloth skeletons with hair, skin, and tendons still attached to the bones have been found. Fossilized dung has also been excavated from many caves, including that of both Nothrotheriops shastensis and N. texanus, which allows scientists to gain data about the food plants of these extinct animals. Why did these animals use caves? Did the caves provide shelter at night or during the extreme heat of the day? It is possible that the sloths may have spent the day in caves and gone out to feed at night. Perhaps they used caves to secure a more stable environment in terms of humidity, as well as temperature. Some scientists have proposed that the caves were used as nurseries, since fossils from juvenile sloths have been found there. Yet another theory suggests that sloths used caves as a source for special minerals in their diets. Large hyoid bones in some sloths' throats suggest that some may have had well-developed prehensile tongues, similar to that of a giraffe, that aided in feeding. Modern sloths live in the forests of South America. Although they are much smaller than the extinct species, they retain some similarities. For example, they also lack front teeth and have long claws, which they use to hang upside down from tree branches for hours at a time. They are nocturnal animals, have a very low rate of metabolism, and move around very little. Giant sloths like Megatherium led much different lifestyles than their modern relatives. Judging by its huge, sharp claws, which measured almost a foot long, paleontologists believe Megatherium spent most of its time rearing up on its hind legs and ripping the leaves off trees, but it may also have been an opportunistic carnivore, slashing, killing, and eating its fellow slow-moving South American herbivores. In this regard, Megatherium is an interesting case study in convergent evolution. If you ignore its thick coat of fur, this mammal was anatomically very similar to the tall, pot-bellied, razor-clawed breed of dinosaurs known as therizinosaurs, the most imposing genus of which was the huge, feathered Therizinosaurus, which went extinct about 60 million years earlier. But as you might expect, Megatherium captured the imagination of the public, just beginning to come to terms with the concept of giant extinct animals, much less the theory of evolution, which wasn't formally proposed by Charles Darwin until the mid-19th century. The first identified specimen of the giant sloth was discovered in Argentina in 1788 and definitively pegged as a sloth a few years later by the French naturalist Georges Cuvier, who at first thought Megatherium used its claws to climb trees, and then decided it burrowed underground instead. Subsequent specimens were discovered over the next few decades in various other South American countries, including Chile, Bolivia, and Brazil, and were some of the world's best-known and best-loved prehistoric animals until the start of the golden age of dinosaurs. Why did the ground sloths become extinct 10,000 years ago at the end of the Pleistocene, along with so many other big mammals? Some paleontologists say that climate changes altered sloths' favored plant communities. Other researchers credit human predation and habitat disruption for the extinction of the sloths. Even some hyper-disease has been suggested to explain their demise. Much more research is needed to find the answers.